Welcome to Augmented Teachings. Let's talk about the things that will inspire us to think better, feel better, and in turn be better. I'm your host, Todd Michael Jackson. I'm here with Brandi Pagano, my co-host. How you doing, Brandi?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So, I already have a video up about my origin.
Yes.
Let's talk about you a little bit and your journey that you've been taking.
Okay, great. What would you like to know?
I'd like to know, you've been studying different religions, different scriptures here and there. What religions have you gone into and actually pulled thoughts and comparisons from?
Well, I wouldn't say that I've studied one more than the other. It's more so that I have been involved in the last 6 years in the New Thought community of metaphysics.
Nice.
And thinking from a standpoint of our thoughts create our reality.
Yes.
And that we are all one, and that we are one with the divine source of all life.
Awesome.
So when, people say we are made in the image and likeness of God, it doesn't mean we look like God. It's that we think as God. God is a part of us.
Yes.
And so if I can step into that creative power that God is, that I also am in as an individualized expression of God, then I can create with the same power that God creates.
Yes. Absolutely.
So that's more where I study from.
Yes.
And I like to watch documentaries, read books, different things, where I am able to recognize that oneness and that unity in all different faiths.
Right.
So I don't believe that one is better or one has, more truth.
Right.
I believe that there's truth in all. It's just we have to be willing to recognize that truth.
Right.
And to make those connections.
I agree 100%. And I came to the same conclusion you did, but I cheated a little bit.
Yeah.
I went to the back of the book and looked at the answers.
Nice.
So what I did is I went to near-death experiences, people who momentarily died and come back, and I compared and contrasted, and I was like, oh, wow, now it all makes sense. And what you're saying is exactly right. This whole universe is like a school, and this planet is like a classroom.
Yes.
And we are actually practicing to be like God without knowing God exists. We have that separation through our vessel, our bodies, that we don't feel God's love. We don't feel God's energy wrapped around us in these vessels like we do back at home. At home, the vibration is insane. It'll shake your atom to the core. In this world, so we practice being like God over and over and over. It kind of reminds me of that movie Groundhog Day, where he starts off just not doing well at all, and then after he learns self-love, then everything starts to fall into place naturally and organically.
Yes.
And that's basically what we're here. We're here to practice to be like God without God guiding us.
Well, I will say, if I can, that practicing the art of self-love has given me the experience of experiencing God's love here.
Yes.
Because I don't think I have to go anywhere else. I don't have to go home to know that love.
Right.
I believe that through the power of our thoughts and being open and really tapping in and connecting, we are able to experience that.
Yes.
It takes practice and it takes conscious effort.
Yes, it does. And many of us are very, very far from that.
Yes.
Yes, and that's the problem. So I agree 100% that it's like no training wheels here. That's what I meant to say.
Absolutely.
It's like no training wheels, and many souls don't come here because it's way harder here to learn, because it can be so drastic and so violent and chaotic here. But we learn faster here. If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. So this planet is kind of like the express lane for learning empathy and compassion. What you can do in several, say 100 lifetimes, it would take millions of years back home, because we don't have to live with suffering and learning by trial and error what's right and what's wrong.
Exactly. Yeah. As an individual, I feel like for me to practice what it is that I really know about this life and about my purpose here, I get to learn that faster when I'm triggered by other people, because it's asking me to question my beliefs. It's asking me to question my unity and my oneness and life is a school of learning, right?
Yes, it is.
This is a teaching playground for us.
Right.
And that's what we're here to do. We're here to learn.
I know. And this classroom is pretty amazing. Made just for us.
Yes.
And these vessels were made just for us. And they're like our little vehicles we play bumper cars with until we learn not to drive. All drive together.
Play nice now.
I know. Well, at first we don't, but after a while we go with the flow.
Once we learn the rules, right?
Once we learn the rules. Hit the little kids because they bounce farther, right? No. But one thing that we both come to the realization is that some people don't know because they don't want to be religious because of the negative connotations that go with that and the baggage that goes with it. But we both come to the realization that God does exist.
Yes.
Right? And from my studies, God is everything.
Yes.
God, when you go back home, God is an ocean of benevolence. An ocean that exists forever. And you just be a grain of salt within that ocean. So when you go back home, you know nothing else but that ocean. The whole universe fits within that ocean. Every universe from every dimension fits in that ocean. So when we think that God is the Alpha and the Omega, God is the Alpha and the Omega. It's the beginning and the end. And a lot of times people are like, well, if you're not religious, you don't believe in God. It's like, no, I just don't believe in that interpretation. Not that I don't believe in Christianity, because Christianity can be beautiful if it chooses to be. It can follow the teachings of Jesus and be like, you know what, this is awesome. You know, it's about loving your brother. And then some people are, no, I like these other scriptures over here that bring me away from unity, that bring me towards judgment and hate. And they choose to gather to those, grasp towards those. And like I tell people, I said, God isn't religion, any religion, and religion isn't God. God is everything, and religion is just an interpretation. So, religion doesn't make every atom in the universe vibrate and give existence and give every atom its properties. Religion doesn't do that. God does. So all religions can potentially lead to God because God is benevolence and there are benevolent scriptures, but you have to make a concerted effort to seek those out and follow those and be like, yeah, that's for me. And this will help me find God faster when you learn benevolence rather than criticism.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
I wanted to share a quote by Rumi, if I could.
Yeah.
Because you were talking about the ocean.
Yes.
So there's a poet, Rumi, and one of his poems says, "You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop."
Yeah. Yes, you are. I didn't even know that. That's crazy.
And for any of us to make peace with and respect the individuality of the others is not possible if we do not accept and make peace with our own individuality and our own individual struggles and triumphs. Right.
When you have struggles and triumphs, you learn compassion for others, especially with the struggles.
And back home, we couldn't do that.
Yeah, we can't do that. Right.
Because everything is love back home. There's nothing to learn.
And everything is created through thought. So you want a house by a creek, little log cabin, you just snuggle up with somebody, you can create it right there. Boom, it's done. You can create through thought.
Right.
You travel the speed of thought. So, because you're a piece of God again, and God is everywhere, so therefore you can be everywhere.
Right.
So, we can create with nothing. You want the best pizza you ever had, you create it because you have that memory. So you can, and that's one of the things that I tell people is your lifetime is your treasure. Not the money you made, the experiences, because all the experiences can be relived over and over and over, which people are like, wow. I said, so if you want to sit there and watch, cable news and get upset all the time, that's what you're bringing home. Congratulations. You brought nothing. You brought junk food.
Yeah.
Right? Nothing. You want to go take your dog for a walk and meet somebody interesting and have build a relationship with somebody and or go fly a kite or go walk along the beach, go do that. Those are experiences you're going to relive over and over and over. And we share those experiences. People don't realize that we can share them. And not only that, we use them for learning. We don't just learn here on earth. We learn faster here on earth, but we learn at back home in heaven too. And when somebody had a situation where they kept making a mistake, and we can use those experiences as teaching tools in the classroom showing the mistakes made, and then showing when that person finally overcame it and said, you know what, I'm not going to steal today. I'm not going to do this today. I'm not going to do that today. Especially when karma kind of comes around and kicks them in the butt a little bit, and they're like, oh, maybe not today.
Well, when you can come from that better understanding and break that cycle, break that pattern.
Through empathy and compassion.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
And there's so many people on this planet that think they have it all figured out. And I'm like, you do. You have the material world figured out. 4 plus 4 plus 4 equals 12. Congratulations, you got it. But 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus blue plus zebra plus leopard seal, all divided by pi. I don't mean the number pi, I mean apple pie. That doesn't make sense, but to me it does. It equals compassion. There you go.
Boom.
You got it. So, there's certain things we just don't know. We have the material world, but we also have the other side helping us, guiding us through our guardian angels, which one of the things that I found out was we all have guardian angels, and we all have several guardian angels help guiding us, tapping us into place, getting us from one chapter to another, and repeating chapters if we didn't successfully understand everything that was in the old chapter. Read chapter 8 in your book and you go take the test at school and you only got one answer right. You got to go back and read the chapter again. Right. So they're like, man, how come I keep the same cycle? Because you didn't learn.
Right.
You didn't learn. And they'll make sure that cycle continues and not because they're doing it to you, it's because you asked them to. If I don't pass this section at this time, repeat it, please.
Yeah, help me to understand.
Help me understand, because obviously I didn't get it in this 4-year chapter, and I got to do another 3.5-year chapter just to redo the whole thing all over again, so I learn. Until we break that cycle. Until we break that cycle of learning self-love and compassion. And usually everything boils down to love, because that's all God is. God is 100% ocean of compassion and unconditional love. So that's another thing where I stand with, like, looking at religions and being like, what are you guys doing? You're literally telling people, if you don't do this, you don't do that, you don't do that, you're not going to heaven. It's like, wait a second. We all come from the same place. We all go back to the same place. If there was ever a chance we could not return back home, we wouldn't even come here at all. And you don't have to do any of these certain rules. Those are man-made rules. You don't have to eat this certain food on certain days of the week. You don't have to go to this church or that church or bow a certain direction. You don't have to do that. God's love is unconditional. So the real thing we have to learn here is self-love. And when we learn to love each other, we'll love ourselves, we can learn to love each other.
Absolutely.
Learn to love each other, we are a better companion for God.
Absolutely. And it really, for me, being able to recognize that comes from the place of unity.
Right. That
we are all the same.
We
are all a part of God in this manifest universe, this physical universe.
Right. And we're being tricked because we're in different vessels.
Right.
That's the big thing. We're in different vessels. Darn it. I'm not that person over there. You kind of are. Because then basically, and I can explain it in a little bit, when you graduate from this school. Right? When we graduate from this school with many classrooms in it. We'll get to that later. Okay. Another day. But when we actually get there back home and we're like, okay, I'm done with this school. I'm like a benevolent being. I'm Jesus-like in my actions and my thoughts, and I'm compassionate. I can go back maybe to help somebody else, but maybe not. Maybe I'm like, you know what? I'm done. You go into the light. You become part of God. So therefore, every person eventually ends up back in the light. And therefore, we all go back in the light. We're all the same again. We're all come from the same place. And we go back to the same place eventually, bringing all our memories and all our thoughts and all our compassion back to God. So actually we are, and we all end up in the same place eventually, is in the light again. After we're like, okay, we're done with this. We're done with this school, and we're done with this classroom, and I'm ready to go home and stay. And one of the things I found real fascinating was, you stay in the light and you can't come back unless you ask permission. And then who you were gets brought back out, and you can go back into the school again or into a certain classroom to help push an idea or an agenda.
Okay.
All right. So one of the things that there's a big change in the people that are being born now. Yes. They're not the same.
Right.
they're not as judgmental. They're more accepting. They're more compassionate. They're not about me, my. They're about us, right? Because back home, there's no I and me. There's only us and we.
There's only one.
That's right. So we see these newer souls coming in to this world, and they're more accepting. We have the Me Too movement. We have Black Lives Matter. And they're seeing relics from the past that are like hideous to them, because we don't idolize hate, and we don't idolize fear back home. And they're coming here and they're like, well, what's going on here? A lot of these souls have chosen to come back at this time because this cycle is different. The Mayans talk about it. They talked about it December 21st, 2012. That cycle ended. This cycle is of a we mentality, not a me mentality.
Right. Absolutely.
So they're being born. They're like, what's wrong with all this Generation Z and millennials? And they don't want to do this. They don't want to do that. And, how come they're not like us? Because they've been here a lot longer. They just chose to come back now. These are already graduates coming back.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you for touching on that, because that's something that I've really felt into in so many ways. And I know we'll talk about that another time.
Right.
Because that's a whole nother situation.
That's a whole can of worms.
Right.
We touched on it, which is good.
Yes.
It gets people understanding, okay, there's a division. Well, we understand, but it's for a reason. There's a new cycle, and we want to make sure that this planet goes in the right direction sooner, because a lot of things that people wanted to bring, new ideas and thoughts, because we work in soul groups, and we want to bring ideas and thoughts to this world, but it wouldn't have worked in the old cycle.
Right.
It would have been snuffed out.
It was an old paradigm.
Old paradigm, right. The me mentality, the what do you call it? The fear mentality. That's why I had so many darn wars. But anyway,
there was a lot of survival mode happening.
Survival energy.
I feel like
that was the word I was looking for.
Thank you.
Survival. Yeah.
I feel like we're more into the creation energy right now. We're in creative mode.
Creative mode, right,
yes.
right. We're going to bring the things that couldn't happen then can happen now.
Absolutely.
And we're like, hey, we can do this now. We can bring this thought and this idea and this beautiful working together in collaboration where we couldn't have done it before.
So those souls that have come back, do you feel that for them that veil is a lot thinner, and so that's why they're able to kind of work in both worlds? How do you feel about that? Where they're so close to that oneness because they're so pure.
Right. And the crazy thing is the more unconditional love you learn, and the more benevolence you have, the more you're in line with that energy.
Yes.
Right. So it's you're getting more taps, more help, more things. And then not only that, when the angels see you doing something benevolent, they're like, let's give this guy a bone over here. Let's give him another bone over there. Let's make these things line up. So this has momentum.
Right.
And this other guy over here that's not doing that, and he's living in fear and hatred and whatever. Let's try to stop it as much as we can and keep him from progressing this.
Right.
Because like I talked about in the past with the old energy, the old saying was good guys finish last. Right. Because it was neutral. It was like a pond. You moved your own way. You got no help either way. In this new energy, it's like a stream. So benevolent actions get help. Malevolent actions swim against the stream. No matter what direction you're going.
Right.
Malevolence goes against the stream. So it's gonna get squashed. It's gonna have a harder time existing. So it's good to be good in this new energy. It's good to be compassionate and empathetic towards others, because this new energy, this new cycle, which will last thousands of years, so you can't outlive it.
Right.
It lasts thousands of years. That cycle, it's not for 20 years. No, it's for thousands. So this new cycle is really helping benevolence and benevolent people achieve a lot more, and malevolence and judgment is going to have a harder time existing. It'll still exist, but it won't get the help. It won't be neutral like it used to be. It'll actually be swimming against the current. So yeah, that's a lot right there.
That is, yeah. We unpacked a lot already, didn't we?
So there's so I've broken it down to, what's your ideas on the purpose of life? I mean, that's the big question of everything as far as what we're here to do.
Well, if I could sum it up in one short, sentence or phrase, it would be that the purpose of life is to love.
Right.
Because God is love.
Right.
God is everything.
Right.
Love is everything.
Exactly.
Love is actually another word for God in my experience, in my belief, and in my practice.
Yes.
And I used to have an aversion to the word God.
Yes.
I really did.
Me too.
But now I recognize that it's the God of my understanding.
Yes.
It's the God of your understanding.
Right.
It's the God of each individual's understanding.
Right. I always thought of God as the God of religion, and I was like, ugh.
Me too.
That's not.
Right. And I couldn't get on board with that.
Right. Me too. And I'm like, no, God is good. Religion has its issues.
Yeah.
They're not the same.
They're
right?
not the same.
And when I started reading NDEs, near-death experience, I'm
right.
like, oh, okay, now it makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for tapping me in the right spot. You know, because I needed that answer.
I have a question. Have you had an NDE yourself?
No, I have not.
Okay.
And sometimes I do. And I'm like, no, I don't want to go through that. I don't want to go through the injury it takes to get there. I don't want to have to go through the partial drowning. I don't want to go through.
So you believe that it's only a traumatic experience that would cause you to have kind of a quote NDE experience?
You know what? Where we're at as a species, yes.
Okay.
Not that it can't happen in the future, because here we go down this road. So and God is everything, period. And contrary to popular belief, right? Evolution was God's work. It was literally God's work. Mm-hmm. God took this species, leaned on its DNA, and helped it evolve so that we could actually someday enter into it and become a human. As I didn't want to talk about this on this episode, but you know what? Let's just go ahead and do that. So as God leaned on the DNA and allowed us to enter, a lot of people think, Adam and Eve were the first humans, and that's all there was. No. It works like this. They weren't the first humans. They weren't the first vessels. You have vessels here being leaned on by DNA so that it could handle a soul as large as ours. Mm. So he took a soul, put in Adam, took the other side of his soul, side and rib are the same word in Hebrew, to the other side of his soul and put it in Eve, right? Then they had Cain and Abel, and they married two women from a neighboring village. Wait, where'd they come from? The Adam and Eve were the first humans, not the first vessels. So God leaned on the DNA so it could handle a soul as large as ours. All right? So getting to it now we have a piece of God, which is us, inside the vessel. God's still leaning on that vessel, advancing our DNA. As we learn unconditional love, we lean on our DNA too. Mm-hmm. So now it's getting like hit from both sides.
Right.
So now our DNA is evolving faster. Mm-hmm. As we evolve the DNA faster and get it evolving more and more and more generationally, decades, centuries down the road, we're able to put a little bit more of our soul into our vessels. And as we are able to do that, we carry more of our abilities that we have back home to here.
Thank you.
Yes, we're like at 30-something% of our soul can actually fit in our vessel. While if we get up to 40%, we can actually start learning people's thoughts. We can see them and we can know their intentions before they speak.
And is there a way to measure that you've found?
No, I just know that's what I've read. I'm like, we're like at 30% and we're like third graders. Look at it like that. We're like third grader species.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
We don't know Algebra 2 yet.
Yeah.
So we lean on our DNA and we're allowed. But eventually we get to 8th, 9th, and 10th grade. But it's going to take a millennia to get there. It's going to take a long time. It takes generations. And that's one thing as we learn unconditional love, we lean on our DNA faster and more. If we're going to sit there and watch cable news and get pissed off all the time and want to point the finger and find who's wrong and blame and fear and anger, you're not helping your DNA at all.
Right.
And not only that, you're not bringing back any experiences. So it's like a double negative. Just don't do that.
Absolutely.
Go find something positive to do. Put on a record or something. That's what I do. Put on a record, play some darts. Beat the birds, whatever.
Right.
Whatever you got to do.
Yes.
But get away from that energy, and you start to smile again, because it not only helps you when you go back home, you have more positive experiences, but it also helps your DNA so that we can actually start moving it forward and becoming and carrying more of our attributes with us. I've heard people talk, when they're NDEs and stuff like that, that we will get to a day when we can actually move ourselves to other places. Like we travel the speed of thought back home in heaven. We will be able to do that here, but we're not there yet. We're just not there. So it takes a long time, but we're working on it. In this new cycle, it's so exciting because we can do so much more with love. And producing it and generating it and sharing it and multiplying it in this new energy that we couldn't do in the old one.
Right.
So I'm very excited about that. And that's why people like you and me and all the people that are talking about, hey, you know what? God's good. Just move away from religion and you're fine. Or religion has to adjust.
Adjust.
Because
Thank you.
You know what? Like I've told people, I said back in the 40s and 30s, there was Christians that were conscientious objectors. They wouldn't kill. I'll go into the war. You can draft me, but I'm not going to kill anybody. I'll drive an ambulance. I'll work the staff or whatever. I'm not going to kill nobody.
Right.
So now it's all about Second Amendment. It's all about who do we need to kill to make things right in this planet? It's like, no, you don't need to kill anybody. Okay, it's fine. Who do I need to kill to protect my material goods? The things you're not taking back home?
Right. You can't take it with you.
But you will take the death and karma.
You're going to take that experience with you.
Oh, and it's going to...
And all that energy from that experience.
Yes. And not only that, you'll feel how the other family felt. Well, they were wrong. Well, that was your ego. When you go back home, you have no ego. That stays with your body.
Right. Exactly. Yes.
So
thank you.
That's one thing is when you have your...
That.
So let's explain past life review real quick. So
okay.
As soon as you pass over and you die, you'll have somebody take you to your past life review, which is in heaven. So people are like, oh, you go to hell or heaven? Would you? Even with us in our fragmented state that we're in as a species, we don't have judge and jury without a trial, right? We just don't go, oh, you just went to hell straight away. Right? No, you see your past life review, and it's not a trial. Basically, you go through all your experiences from what you can remember. Okay. So probably like 3 or 4, whatever it is, and then you go through and the only thing you get judged on, or the only thing that matters, you don't really get judged. The only thing that makes any movement either way is how you treated others. Did you treat somebody with dignity and respect and kindness and love and joy and laughter? And you feel the energy come off that as they spread it to another person, and that person spread it to another person. You see waves of goodness, and you're just like, whew, that was great. That felt wonderful. And then you're one of those guys or gals that are just horrible to people. And you treat people with contempt, and you treat people lesser, or you talk down to people, or judgmental, or angry, or whatever it is, and then you feel the waves of that. Say you're a boss and you treat your employees like that. Not only do you feel that to your employees, you feel that to their families too. When that guy comes home drunk because he's feeling bad, right. He's feeling crappy because of the way you made him feel, and then he goes and beats on his wife. That's yours. That you created that.
Right, because it's all energy and vibration, and it ripples out through every vessel, through every experience.
I've heard some people going through the past life review, and they've asked the angels to stop because the past life review was so painful, because they were such judgmental people. We'll just say they're judgmental, right? And they were just hurt so many people so often. They just and they can't handle it, and please stop. And the angels will stop the past life review. And they're like, and they'll console you. Are you okay? Yeah, okay. All right, let's do this again. And they started back up, and you continue along your road, And it's funny because people are like, well, it's about what you accomplish. Just no, That's not on the test either. There was one guy who had won the shot put. He won the state he'd set the state record, and he knew it was coming up. And he was like, all right, all the angels are going to start woohooing, right?
Uh-huh.
And it happens, nothing happened. No, he set the shot put landed. Okay, that was that. And then 2 weeks later, he opened a door for a little old lady, and all the angels went woohoo, because you did something for somebody else.
Right.
Right. How you treat others.
Right.
So that's all that matters. How you treat others. Mm-hmm. That's it. It's not what you accomplish. It doesn't matter if you're a janitor or the president of the company. It does not matter. It's how you treated others. That's all that matters. And at the end of your past life review, God will ask you if you're ready, because God's love is unconditional, and His patience is God's patience is infinite, because God's neither he or she. But anyway,
thank you.
God's patience is infinite. So, they'll ask, are you ready to come into the light? Are you ready to go on to another classroom or whatever? No, I gotta go back. I screwed up. I had some moments, but all in all, I give myself, a D. It's not gonna work. I got to go back because I got to learn some things.
Let's cycle back through that, right?
Yes, I go back through that, and then you'll start planning your life out so that you can accomplish most of the things you can do it in one lifetime. So, say you lived in too much fear and judgment, then you got to learn. You got to work cycles. You got to work your next lifetime into fixing that. Mm-hmm. Or maybe you were not fearful, but you were really prejudiced. You have to work yourself in that, and becoming the group of people that you scrutinize the hardest is usually the best way to fix most problems when it comes to racism or whatever, judgment, harsh criticism. Wherever you most harshly criticize is usually where you end up going. Mm-hmm. So I look at the border and all these people like, oh my God, it's so horrible. All these people are coming over. And I'm like, all these people just want to get back to where they're from.
Exactly. Yeah, really.
When you're judgmental against people south of the border, guess what you're and it's not going to be done to you. When you go back home, you have no ego. So you're like, I got to go over there now. I have to fix this. And you have all these people wanting to come back. You ever met somebody with a bathroom that's all done in Japanese, or Chinese or Russian or whatever it is? You know what I'm saying? It's because that's what they have like a certain thing where they like that, and that's because that's where they're from. If you go like into Japan, they have like a greaser culture. A lot of people that were from the 50s and 60s were very anti-Japanese because of Pearl Harbor, right? And then you look over there now, they have a greaser culture. Why do they attracted to Levi's and leather jackets and greasing their hair? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's where they went. And they found each other again. Kind of, because groups travel together.
Yeah.
So a bunch of them went over there. That's where I scrutinize the most. That's where I got to go.
So just to put that love back in there, right?
Right. I need to fix myself because the end result is I'm fixing myself for God. Right. Because the higher your vibration is, the more beautiful companion you are for God. You can choose, like, I'm coming here once. I'm done. And you say you come here one time, and you're just like, you're totally, completely dysfunctional because you're overridden by your vessel. Your vessel makes all the decisions for you because you're not used to being in a vessel. Every time you're here, you get a little bit better at it.
Right.
And you come down here one time, and you're like, oh, I screwed up. But you know what, God? This is it. God will gladly accept you, but you will not be happy with yourself. You will not be happy with your vibration. I tell people, like, everything it's black and white. It's heaven, great, hell, bad, which, by the way, there is no hell. There's heaven, but it's infinite levels of heaven.
Right.
So the people the lowest vibration are in the lowest vibrations of heaven, and the people in the highest vibrations of highest vibrations are in the highest vibrations of heaven. So Hitler is in heaven, but he's in the lowest vibration. He's hanging with other killers, because
he was vibrating at that level
of hate
here.
Right,
exactly.
So that's where he went, the lowest vibration, and he's hanging out with other people of his ilk.
Because like attracts like.
Yes, exactly. Birds of feather flock together here and there.
All over,
all
everywhere,
over.
right?
Right.
Yes.
So, yes, that's how it works. Past life reviews. So yeah, and when you choose to come back, that is reincarnation. Because like I said, like a lot of Christians say, well, anything's possible with God. Yeah, absolutely right. How about reincarnation? Oh, we don't do that. Well, if you had a choice, would you? If you had a choice to better yourself for the love of God, would you? Well, yeah. Well, good, because you can do that. So I'll see you soon.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
We'll all be back together. Right. So I think one of the biggest things that we need to understand is we're here a bunch of times. We move around a lot. Mm-hmm. Right now, I'm in America. I'm not technically American. Our souls aren't American. I'm not male or female. I'm not anything. Mm-hmm. I just am male this time.
In that vessel.
In this vessel.
Yes.
Right. But they're like a pair of shoes. We exchange them. Mm-hmm. Right. They go off and on. Just like one lifetime. You'll go through, 40 pairs of shoes. Well, in one soul development, you might go through 40 different vessels.
So now I have a question.
Yes.
Do you believe that the only way to go, you just saying that you throughout your lifetime, you change shoes so many different times,
yes,
right?
Yes.
So do you believe that the only way to change mm-hmm. is to die, quote mm-hmm. unquote, and mm-hmm. then come back into a different vessel?
Yes, because once you're attached, you're pretty much attached. There's no way to pull. There's mental ways to pull yourself out. Right. There are mental ways, and people are learning that. They're tapping into it, and this new energy is going to be so helpful in that. Mm-hmm. Right? Because certain things we couldn't do before, we can now. Mm-hmm. But yes, you can. You can do out-of-body experiences, projectile, astral projection, all this stuff. You can. Those are things we can do back home, but we're just barely getting to our DNA's barely. Our souls, just enough of our souls are in these vessels to actually make that happen. So we struggle with it, but it is possible.
It is possible.
It is possible, yes. But you come back to the vessel eventually. You can astral project, mm-hmm. be somewhere else, but then you come back because you're still attached.
And the reason why I was asking is because in my personal experience, mm-hmm. I have had that happen.
Yes.
I look the same. Mm-hmm. I sound the same. I'm in the same reality, but I'm not living with the same perspective because I have had the ability and the awareness to go back home.
Nice.
To look at things and then to bring that wisdom mm-hmm. back here, that knowledge back mm-hmm. here, and then by the power of my thoughts, because I believe my thoughts create my reality.
They do.
My thoughts create my emotions. Mm-hmm. My emotions create my state of being. Mm-hmm. And my state of being now creates a new thought. Right. So now I'm creating this new pattern.
Yes.
And I'm attracting different things mm-hmm. based off of a new higher vibration. A new or higher perspective.
Right. And
so things look the same, mm-hmm. but we're in a different paradigm.
I'm not that advanced, darn it.
Well, you know what? I believe we're all one.
So, I wake up from my dreams and I can put pieces together that weren't there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, or I hear a song in my head and I'm like, oh, that's going to fit for the day, isn't it? And it kind of does. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, all right, cool beans. But yeah, I haven't, mine's primitive. I don't have that ability. That's why I went to the back of the book and cheated.
Yeah.
Some people are like, I have the willpower to do this for the next 20, 30. I just figure it out and get it all done with all this information. I'm like, I just went to the back of the book. Mm-hmm. But that's so awesome.
Let's speed up this process.
Yeah. You know what? I'm a math science guy. So I'm like, you know what? I just want the answers.
Yeah.
I just want to know what's on the test. Because I hate when the teacher's like, oh, this is going to be on the test, right? And it isn't, right? It's everything I said, not what's in the book. Or everything that's in the book, nothing that I said. And then you're like,
what were they supposed to pay attention to?
I know. Which one's in and then by 2 or 3 weeks, you're like, okay, I got it. You're going to say all this stuff, but you're not going to give all the things you're saying don't matter. It's what's in the chapter.
Well, there is only one truth, and all the rest is just details.
Yes.
And I think that's where religion gets a little confusing mm-hmm. because there is one truth in a lot of different religions and mm-hmm. philosophies and ways of life, but there's so many details that get muddied up and that are confusing and conflicting from one to the next.
Right. And sometimes a religion will take that one detail and exploit that and make it a thing.
Right.
I mean, like that one prayer where you can walk through the shadow and you can handle not fear serpents and all this, and then you have snake handlers. I mean, religion in West Virginia, they're like snake handlers. I'm like, what?
So how is that? That's so contradicting, right?
I know. I'm like, you took one little prayer and exploited one piece of it and made that your religion. I'm like, that's okay, good for you. But you know what? It's crazy. The older the soul, the more they lean towards benevolence.
Right.
And I always tell people, if you want to be Christian, because we live in a Christian country, I understand that. just follow the teaching of Jesus. That's good. You know what? Everything Jesus says in the Bible, sound through it, and it lines up with the testimonies of people that are dying to come back.
Well, it's because it's that Christ consciousness.
Right, Christ consciousness.
Yes.
That's right. That's what I love, because we met here in church.
Yes.
Which I love this church. It's a spiritual church.
Yeah.
And you celebrate all religions.
We do.
And you light a candle for all the major religions. And I'm like, applaud that.
Yes, that is actually one of my favorite practices that we have here.
Yes.
It's a beautiful ceremony.
Right, and I'm like, you light a candle for all the major religions. Mm-hmm. There's no judgment here. They all have something to offer.
Yes.
And that is true too.
Yes, and we honor all faiths, right. All paths.
Right, and that's amazing, you know, and I see people of different backgrounds here,
yes.
and I'm like, very cool, very cool.
We are open and affirming to all.
Right, and that means you're walking the walk.
Absolutely.
Because some people are like, oh no, we accept everybody, unless this, or unless, and I'm like, no, here they accept everybody.
Right, period. You can't love everybody. Oh, but wait, not that person.
Not that guy.
Person's not.
We can
not
love
God.
them, but they're burning in hell.
Right,
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And there's that judgment, but really, then we're judging ourselves, in my opinion.
Right.
There's an aspect of that.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, reincarnation happens, and we do it a bunch of times. So I like to always finish with backing up what I just said, mm-hmm. and basically, God is everything. Yes. That's always been everything, always will be everything. And I tell people that, and they're like, the first thing that comes out of their mouth is this: childhood diseases. Okay, childhood diseases. Where's God there? Child gets cancer at 5, dies at 8. Where was God there? And it's very simple. When we come here, our two purposes of life are to work the puzzle of unconditional love, and to bring back memories, because those memories eventually become God's. We share them. We compare and contrast them and share them and relive them if they're really awesome, right? But sometimes, well, in our soul group, because we travel, we work together in groups. Groups of lower vibrations will kind of come together and coalesce here on Earth, and then higher vibrations will also coalesce on Earth, right? We have soul groups. So sometimes somebody in that group decides, I'm going to have a challenge life, or I'm going to take on more challenge to help develop the souls of the people around me. So they'll gladly, we're here hundreds of times. So they offer to do this to develop the souls of their people in their soul group. You're crying over here.
Absolutely, yeah, okay. I am, because you've touched right on it.
Right,
you've touched right on that,
and that's reason why they do it. They like, I'll take the challenge, but then I'm gonna teach this person more compassion, absolutely. More acceptance, because I wasn't perfect, more this, more that, more sacrifice, more unconditional love, because I wasn't this thing, I was this thing, and then it's to help the people around them instead. And they already know they're coming back to God's love, and they're going to bask in that, right? So they're like, I have nothing to worry about. I'm not ever going to come back. I'll pass at this age, but it'll produce different results with the people in their soul group. Yes. If they had been, non-challenged, they would have, the parents would have been this, or the relatives or other siblings would have been this. But with the challenge, they became something different. And that's what was needed for that soul group. So we do it as sacrifices to each other. Yes.
And I do. I firmly believe that everything happens for a reason.
Yes.
We have choice. We have free will. But there's always a reason and a purpose for every event.
Yeah. So, I want to finish on taking that one step further.
Okay.
Because there was somebody who posed a question. And school shooting.
Yes.
Where was God there? And we gladly will give up a lifetime, one of our vessels, or part of a vessel lifetime, to help somebody in our soul group develop. We have no problem doing the same thing to help society as a whole. So there are people here that are already agreed to say, you know what, I'm willing to give up a portion of my vessel time in this vessel so that I can help society learn the error of its ways. So it happens. There's hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of souls already here, ready to teach us the error of our ways. Because back home, there is no guns. Back home, we bask in God's love, and you can choose to do that here too.
Right. It's a choice.
Or you can choose to live in fear and watch cable news all day.
Back to that, right?
So yes. So that's the biggest thing right now. This country is going to be the leader in world peace. It is. But we have to get over our differences. And the one roadblock we have is cable news on both sides. You know, my parents were liberal, and I used to just get so pissed off and upset and just, and then I know I see people at the gym watching the other side and getting all pissed off and upset. And I'm like, you guys don't realize they're just exploiting you.
I actually had to stop watching TV several years ago. It just...
Too much.
It was not healthy for my state of mind, my state of being.
Right.
I was being pulled into lower and lower vibrations, and I couldn't do that. It was literally destroying my life.
Yes, I understand.
The way that I was living.
Yeah, we don't have cable. We're done.
No,
I have my Disney Plus and my Netflix.
The things that we choose to watch, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I want to be entertained or I want to laugh. Right, and I'm gonna get laughter, because you know what? God is love. God is love. But when God speaks to you, when God, is not a man. God is omnipresent, right? God controls every atom in the universe. That's how God is omnipresent.
Right.
Right, because every atom in your body is made of atoms, and God makes every atom exist, and given its properties. It gives every atom its properties. So that's how God is omnipresent, not through cameras, but because God is everything.
God is.
But when God speaks to you back home, it's the same feeling we have when we have laughter. Yeah. That's why we're so drawn to laughter and humor, and I love laughter. So it's hard for me to show, especially when you're like, a convenience store, you can't show love, but you can show laughter, so I'm always trying to make the cashier laugh, trying to make this person laugh or giggle or something.
Well, that is an expression of love, which is an expression of God, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So I always try to use humor to break the ice, or to bring a smile to people's lives.
Well, it brings connection.
It does.
Doesn't it?
It does. Right. And then when I see them the next time, they're automatically smiling because they remember the joke. Right.
From that memory, pulls up that feeling.
Right.
Of connection, of unity, of oneness.
Right. And then I'll take the joke the other direction the next time I see them, right? And then they start laughing even harder.
Just continue it.
It's an inside joke now between us. Right. Exactly.
And that's why I believe our purpose is to love, to come together, to support each other.
It is.
In unity.
I agree, 100%. And
I didn't used to think that I did, because I wasn't aware of that. I didn't know.
Me neither.
But based off of the experiences that I've had, that's where I'm at now.
Me too.
And I went somewhere else. I came back, and I've had a complete paradigm shift.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah,
that's great. Yeah. I had an awakening the wrong way. I got pissed off at God.
Yes, that happens too.
And found myself changed, and I was like, what the hell just happened?
Yeah. Many people have had that though,
but really. I'm like, okay, now I know you exist. Now I have to seek you. Darn it. Okay, let's do this. Now I got it. Yeah, I'm like, it's a bunch of hokey pokey stuff over in that book. I'm not with it. I'm like, oh, and then that thing happened, and I was like, wow.
I think it's just misunderstanding. It's misinterpretations.
Right.
It's all those details. It's the fluff.
It's the
that
fluff.
Really gets confusing. I
know. And I'm just like, and that's crazy, is because but with my little bit of studying that I've done with that, it was like red letter Christians, which are Christians that only study the teachings of Jesus, they lean left. But regular Christians lean right. What happened?
Something to think about.
Yeah, something to think about. Anyway, so that's God is everywhere. God is everything. And God never does anything to us. God only does things for us when we've already agreed to it. God loves us enough to allow it to happen. So people are shot. People have cancer. God loves us enough to allow it to happen so that we can continue to grow. Because basically, we're here to learn. We're here to learn, here to work the puzzle of unconditional love. Right. And man, and after we're done working it, all our souls are a little bit different, or a lot bit different, because we work it all differently. You know, we're here so many times that by the time we bring our soul back, that deck of cards looks completely different from everybody else's deck of cards that's been reshuffled. You know what I'm saying?
It's interesting you were talking about the puzzle, because I do think that, you know, there is this puzzle of life. And I believe that all the pieces are laid out. They're just not revealed. They're not illuminated yet. But every time we have these conversations, or we listen to different speakers, or, you know, anytime we expand our consciousness, more of those puzzles are being shown. Right. More of those puzzle pieces are come to light. Right. They're being illuminated. And then we come from a better understanding of what this life is. Right. And it's a beautiful thing when you get a puzzle piece and it shines brightly, and you're like, I can attach this. And that's why I was saying in my talk the other day about, you know, I love when my brain has become a pattern recognition expert. Yes. In the fact that I can take this, I can watch this, I can read this, and I can connect those dots, and it makes sense. Yes. Because I'm putting those puzzle pieces together. Yes. Yeah. Me, I'm not that good. I do it when I wake up. They download it when I'm sleeping. Right. And when I wake up, like, that makes total sense now. Do you ever, I'm a freak for like watching documentaries and learning. I love absorbing information, but I like to watch this stuff, and it's like I get confirmation of things that I already intuitively knew, but I didn't really understand. Right. But once somebody else speaks it clearly or shows me in a way that my brain can understand, then it's like my soul is like, yes, that's it. That's it. Now you get that. Right. It's been reconfirmed. Yeah. And it just kind of ignites me, and I get lit up. I really do. That's awesome. Yeah. So, I think this podcast has gone pretty good. We talked about things that I had no idea we were going to talk about. I covered a few things on my list. Yeah. And then the rest of it, we just shot from the hip, no script. Well, I am a firm believer that everything that needs to be said is said. Yep. Everything that needs to be heard is heard. And everything happens for a reason. So obviously there was a reason that we brought up the topics that we did today. So nice. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. So remember, always have love and laughter in your heart, and keep moving forward. Goodbye. That's right. Goodbye. Goodbye. Thank you. Thank you.